Yeah, just a little bit. Now, it was a lie. It was a fake. But it was not true. But it was at least an illusion. Nobody let us ever be American. America has not broken any promises to us. They never made any. They weren't even talking to us. When they said liberty and justice for all, we weren't in the all. And when we go to the place where the all was being given out, they weren't talking about us. So what you doing here? Johnny Johnson, a black millionaire, 10 years ago he was worth $200 million reserve. That means money he paid taxes on and salted away. He can no more get a cab at LaGuardia than I can. And all I got is an old beat-up brownstone house in Harlem, a little pension and Social Security. He would probably have less of a chance. They see him first, he's taller and just as black. I'm saying that you can change your position without changing your condition. We are no further from slavery now than we was after emancipation. Only the new slavery is computerized. And you have the illusion that you're part of somebody else's thing because you cannot understand how some things were set in motion. You cannot understand the nature of education, otherwise you would not expect your enemies to educate your children. It's a contradiction in terms. If your enemy educate your children will come to power and take freedom. They won't ask for it, they will take it. If you educate to rule nations, then you will take a nation back. If Nelson Mandela had any kind of education or political sense, the first thing he would ask for is the return of the land. Land is the basis of nation. All right, suppose South Africa could vote tomorrow. They eliminated apartheid tomorrow. The blacks are still poor. The whites still have 87% of the land. They've got the mines and the operators. They control the airports. They control the harbors. They control every wealth-producing resource in the country. So they can vote. So what? So they got freedom of speech. So what? They do not have nationhood. You will not have nationhood until you control your wealth and you control your land. And here's what we miss. We always want to cooperate with other people. We want to share with other people. And we will not stand before the European and say, we will share with you in Africa only to the extent that you're willing to share with us in Europe. If you share no land with us in Europe, we share no land with you in Africa. Now let's look at this new world order that is not so new. It's an old world order accommodating some new people, but all of the people in the coalition want to rule over us because Africa is the last untapped mineral resource in the world. It is the largest mineral resource in the world. It is the last geographical resource in the world. It is the last underpopulated continent in the world. They want to get away from all that ice They want to take Africa and repopulate it with Europeans. And the Arab wants Africa just as much as the European, because there are Arabs who wish to depopulate Africa and take it. There are Africans being killed in the Sudan right now solely because they are not Muslims. There are Africans being driven out of Mauritania who are Muslims, being driven out solely because they are not Arabs. There are black Muslims who have not lifted their voice against this one iota. There are black Muslims who are teachers of African history and who come to the part of the invasion of the Western Sudan, inner West Africa from Morocco by the Muslims. They leave that part out. And there's a whole literature on this destruction. This invasion facilitated the spread of the slave trade inland and wrote doom for all the independent states in inner West Africa, in coastal West Africa. The Arab slave trade had already destroyed the independent states in Eastern Africa. We will not deal with the invader who came to stay, but we will rationalize this, say that it's just evil Arabs and not Islam. Every organized religion that was brought into Africa was the handmaiden of a conqueror. Christianity, Islam, and the Hebrew faith. We are confused between Jews and the Hebrew faith. The Hebrew faith is an international faith. There are people who belong to it all over the world. It's not the private property of some Europeans who call themselves Jews. We need not get into the whole concept of Semitism. How can you be anti-Semitic when you don't even know what a Semitic is? The people you are dealing with, you think are Jews, are some converted Gentiles from Europe. They played every role in colonialism and slavery that the rest of the Europeans played. As Europeans, when Germany had colonies, they played a role in Germany's colonies. The British had colonies, they played a role in the British colony. When all of them were in the slave trade, they played a role in the slave trade. I didn't say their role was larger than other people's. It was a unique role, but they're business people, and slavery was a business. And they went where they could make profit. They didn't apologize for it. And they gave us no reformation and no apologies. And all of this is well documented. I don't know what people are arguing about. Most of the documents came from their records. They were part of this old world order. Now let's see if we can set it in proper historical focus, because it is so difficult to get you to read a good book on the subject, and there's a good book on damn near everything. All right, now when Greece invaded the Mediterranean under a young man named Alexander, it was a period when Africa had been invaded a lot from Western Asia, mistakenly called the Middle East. The last disastrous invasion came from what is now Iran. About 550 BC, the Africans cried out, "Oh God, if you cannot send me a liberator, send me a conqueror who will show some mercy." When young Alexander showed some mercy, he did not have to fight his way into Africa. He came in allegedly as that conqueror who would show some mercy. And he did. The kind of mercy he showed the kind of mercy that has ruined us as a people. He began to mulatto-size the population of Egypt, marry some Greeks into the Egyptian royal families, adopt some African customs, cut some African heads off of statues and put Greek heads on the statues. He did the thing all conquerors do, is to declare war on your culture and make you think less of yourself. War on your religion. And he began to interfere with a thing that is delicate in every land. He began to use his option, the option of every conqueror, to take your women at will. Now, he did not have color prejudice as we know it today, neither did the Romans. Smug, snobbish, impossible, people with high preferences. But after the Roman entered the Mediterranean, they did not want to share as the Greeks wanted to share. They did not want a part of the action. They wanted it all. This is the beginning of Europeans' desire to control everything in sight. This was the old world order that's now re-emerging as a new world order. The Romans destroyed Carthage. After a while, almost 300 years, they killed people for being Christians. There were more Africans killed in the amphitheaters of North Africa than in the arena in Rome. Why you know so much about the killing of the Christians in the arena in Rome? Because Cecil B. DeMille told you so. Spectacular movies. They made no movie about the killing of the African Christians in North Africa and in the amphitheaters of North Africa. They made no movie about the murder of the African Christian woman who created the concept we now know as the Sunday school, Hypatia, killed by a Roman called Peter the Reader, who raped her, threw her bones, threw her flesh into the Mediterranean, disposed of her bones. Now, this continued because the Romans thought that being a Christian means that you are weak. Only a fool would turn the other cheek. What you do not understand is that what you call Christianity existed in Africa in another form 3,000 years before the birth of Christ. And because you will not read books like John Jackson's Christianity Before Christ, or the pagan origins of the Christ myth, or Percy Graves' 16 crucified saviors, or James Frazier's The Folklore of the Old Testament, you will not recognize the fact that the Bible is mainly folklore and fable. And you accept it as true without examining any of it. And if you examine it, you find it is not only not true, but some of it don't make sense. I question the intelligence of anyone who thinks the Bible is true or supposed to be true. Yet I read it as a great book, a fine piece of literature, a great book of spiritual lessons, a great book of allegory, illustrating great spiritual lessons. I take it for what it is. But when Noah plants